All right, now for more on the indictment of Raj Rajaratnam, we are joined by Dan Alpert, Managing Director of Westwood Capital, and we're going to talk, of course, about Citi and TARP as well. But let me just talk to you about what kind of effect this has had on the street. It's been shocking to me for the entire time how little money this is really over. $20 million in gains. You'd think that insider trading would net you a lot more on the street. But has this kind of whipped Wall Street into shape as far as dotting its I's and crossing its T's here?
Well, first of all, it's amazing. I'm here with you for all your good indictments. The last time I was here, we had Stanford. But I think that the lesson here is that somebody's listening. The SEC has sent out, and the various attorneys general, including at the federal level, have sent out warning. You never know who's on the other side of the phone. You never know who's listening into your conversations, and ultimately, you never know who's ratting on you. So I think that is the message that has come out of this case. Don't
trust anybody is the message here.
Well, if you're going to break the law, that's correct.
Hey, listen, let me just mention, because we're talking about Raj Rajaratnam, we have some new headlines. The indictment by that grand jury, including 17 counts, accused of securities fraud conspiracy. I'm assuming we could have all thought that this would come down. The U.S. District Judge Richard Howell will oversee the Galleon case. Now, keep in mind that Rajaratnam and Danielle Chessie were previously charged in U.S. complaints, but again, 17 counts, including securities fraud and conspiracy. I mean, Dan, we should have assumed that this is part of what would be handed down if indeed an indictment came down.
Yeah, you also have to remember that they took their time, just like they did with the Stanford case, actually. They took their time before they started releasing indictments and before they started enumerating charges. That means that they've done their research. They know this stuff is going to stick.
Got a solid case?
And they do have a solid case. Remember that this is, as we were just discussing, this is an example. They want to make sure that the example sticks. They want to make sure that other people have fear of putting themselves in the same position.
All right, let's switch gears now and talk more about Citi's exit here from out from under government control. And we saw Wells Fargo late yesterday afternoon do the same thing. Really, all the big banks now are done. It's ironic that this comes as the White House tries to put more pressure on them to lend, and they kind of get out here. What do you think? Is it a good thing or a bad thing for the banks, first off?
Well, it's ironic that it came, coinciding with Obama's meeting. But by the same token, I don't think there's any irony in the fact that it's all coming at the end of the year. Why? These guys want to get themselves out from under these compensation restrictions.
They want to get paid.
So it's all about bonuses.
They do want to get paid. Look, there have been analysts who've come on these shows and other shows on many news networks and have talked about how there are competitive pressures that are stacked up against Citibank, and they're not going to be able to compete for business. There is some truth to that, I imagine. They're wearing the big, scarlet letter on their shirt saying that we're a member of the United States government and we're 34% owned by the United States government. But the truth is that whether it's Bank of America or Citi or Wells, these people want out of the restrictions, not just the compensation restrictions, other restrictions as well. Lending is so tight today that I defy anybody to say that there's a customer out there who won't borrow from Citibank just because it's owned 34% by the United States.
But then is the government, Dan, at fault here? Are they really doing their homework, their due diligence? Again, they say that accountants are supposed to be in and out of these firms checking them out. I mean, have they really clearly checked that Citigroup is healthy enough to make these payments?
It's garbage in, garbage out. Depending on what your projections are as to loan losses for next year, that determines whether or not they're releasing people from TARP.
Do you think Citigroup's ready?
I personally don't think many of the banks are ready. I think that the projections that are being used right now are projections based on some form of a V-shaped recovery, either a wobbly V or a straight line V. I don't care what V you like. If this is a W and we repeat what happened in the late 80s, where we have a double dip, if we put ourselves in this situation where we're looking at existing loans that are outstanding on which losses are almost certain to be taken unless this recovery is maddening in terms of its acceleration, we are looking at banks that are going to be in some difficulty next year, and the degree of that difficulty is going to determine whether or not they need additional help, which I don't believe will be forthcoming from Congress.
What do you think about the possibility of a double dip here?
I think that the possibility of a double dip is definitely in the cards. I think that we're looking at housing, which is about, when you look at housing, everybody's saying, we're all done, it's great, we're fine. But the truth is, housing for September, the Case-Shiller numbers in September showed for the first time in, I think, 6 months, more cities going down than up.
All right, Dan, we got to run. Thank you so much. Dan Alpert, everybody.